Welcome to the Women in Film Project's Feature Artist Series. I'm Morgan Taylor, the host of the Women in Film Project, and we are all about amplifying women's voices in cinema, shining a light on women's stories in the industry, and providing resources to the next generation of filmmakers. And we are thrilled to have Sahvannah Ray with us today. Hi, Sahvannah. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So,
Yeah.
Sahvannah, why don't we get started? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're located, and just a brief little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So I'm located in Los Angeles. I was born and raised here, and I actually grew up in the film business. My dad was a producer of commercials, and so I had a very early on introduction to the business itself, and then kind of teetered in what avenue I was going to take, and then went to school for film at the University of Laverne, and then after graduation, relocated back to the heart of Los Angeles. I was living on Wilshire for a little bit, and yeah, now I'm here and I work in the film business over here as a writer director.
That's amazing. So, you're a writer, director. You also have a production company?
Yes, so
Really?
yeah, in September of 2022, so a little less than a year ago, my sister and I started our production company after we had kind of fought with the creative, um, I guess the creative pull of working for other people. And so we love collaborating, we love working with other people. We thought in order to prioritize our own creative um, storytelling process, it was going to be creating our own company. And that was going to be the forefront of what we were going to do. And so we created that in September of 2022, and it's called Sky Film Studios.
That's so neat. And I love that sometimes when you're working with collaborations, it's hard to have your own voice shine forth.
Yeah, absolutely. It was very much figuring out that balance of wanting to work with other people, but also wanting to be authentic to the stories we were telling and make sure they came across as very genuine. And we found the only way to do that was to have a lot of the reigning control in what we were putting out as a company. And so far it's been amazing.
That's awesome. What type of you mentioned telling the types of stories that you want to tell. What type of stories are on your heart to tell or that you tell through your production company?
So we really have made it a priority to highlight our Mexican background and also have women at the forefront of everything we do in terms of our lead characters. That's something that is always really important to us. So ideally, we base everything or a lot of our projects off of female characters of Mexican descent. And it just opens up a completely different creative pool in what we're able to highlight, what we're able to dive into. There's just so much depth in women themselves and then in our heritage as Mexican women. And it's just been so amazing to be able to dive into that a little bit deeper without too many constraints on us.
That's so cool. As a side note, I am also a Mexican woman, so that's really cool. That's my
Yeah,
heritage. So
amazing. I love hearing that.
super cool that you do that. And I think it's important for um, that diversity in film and in arts in general of being able to have a place to tell your stories in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great being able to pull from my own experiences, and it just makes our stories that much more relatable, that much more authentic. I mean, a white man can watch our films and still feel the depth of authenticity that we put into everything. And so we're big believers in write off of our own experiences and create stuff that feels very genuine to what we've been through as women or our mirrors of our own fears or traumas or the best and worst parts of our lives. And so it's been great to be able to highlight those in our stories and then bring them to life in a very creative way.
I love that. I love that. And what's it like working with family and working with your sister and all of this?
Oh my gosh, it is incredible. I mean, her and I think, share a brain. And so she is the yin to my yang. And it's been great to be able to work with somebody who just knows me so well on and off set And we just wrapped up our first feature, and I couldn't imagine having gone through that process with anybody else. I mean, we spent probably 20 hours a day for 6 months straight together for pre-production and production and now post-production. And it's great being able to have that like-minded individual who you know is on your side. I think it's really important when you're on set or even developing a project to surround yourself with creatives that you really, really trust, because it's such a vulnerable process, the storytelling of it all. And so having people there that you know aren't going to judge your ideas or are going to create that safe space, it just makes all the difference.
That's awesome. You've made your own bubble and environment to flourish.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So why don't we take a step back now? I'd love to hear about your background and basically your career in the industry. You mentioned that your family was already involved in filmmaking and commercials. Is what drew you to film? Was it something like that, or watching your dad work in the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was really interesting the introduction I had because my father was a producer, and so his approach to the industry was very logistical. And I really, really didn't fall in love with filmmaking until I fell in love with storytelling. And that was through books and novels, and then through movies and film, and cinema as a whole. And then it was kind of like a stepping stone into the world of creation of my own. And so the initial introduction to the film industry was very chaotic, very being a producer. I mean, I love my producers because they just know how to reel in all the chaos when I'm throwing them all these crazy ideas. And so I initially thought that the film business was very logistical until I realized that there was this whole other part to the industry that was just pure creative. And that's, I mean, I was talking very early on. I was probably 8 years old when I realized that there was a writer and a director behind these stories, and that it wasn't just about the budget and all these locations and logistical stuff. It was about the story as a whole. And so when I learned that you could take an idea in your head and make it real life, I think that was just a complete game changer. And from then on, I fell in love with the idea that my ideas could be shared and mean something to somebody else. And then I started initially writing, and I thought I was going to be a novelist for a very long time, which I'm almost done with my first novel. But storytelling through film and cinema has just completely enthralled me in the best way. And so that's kind of where I am now.
That's so cool. When you were at that early age of 8, were there any particular films or stories that stood out to you that kind of gave you that inspiration, or when you realized that, hey, somebody makes these?
Yeah, absolutely. I think The Princess Bride holds a very special place in my heart. Because I think it was my first introduction to love, and love that wasn't familial. And it was just so powerful to see a relationship develop on the screen that I felt so connected to. And I felt like these people were my friends, and I was cheering on their relationship. And I slowly realized that a story can be so universal if it's told correctly, and it's told authentically. And then likewise with horror films, I had no idea that I could have nightmares from something I saw on the screen until I think Chucky was the first one that gave me real nightmares. And it was like, looking back, it's so ridiculous, but it really came to show me the power of cinema and how movies stick with you long after you leave the theater or you get up from the couch.
Right. Yeah, the power of cinema, because it's more than just a film or something entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, are there particular genres you're drawn to? I know you mentioned horror, love stories.
Yeah, I would definitely say psychological thriller is really where I've kind of learned to thrive, just because I love playing with the teetering line between reality and hallucination. and slowly going crazy, because I feel like at one point or another, everybody in their life feels like they are going a little insane. And so I love bringing that feeling onto the screen and showing people exactly how that can develop for a character of mine. And my last project, Albatross, was very, very much in the vein of that. And it was dealing a lot with regret and what happens when you don't initially deal with something, and then it just kind of eats at you for years and years, and it grows, and it's like a disease kind of thing. And that what that can do to your brain. And so I love anything that kind of alters the mind and makes you second guess everything you've ever thought.
Yeah, and it's a very unique genre in that regard, where you're not really sure what you're getting into. And as a director, you get to keep your audiences on their toes.
Exactly, exactly. It's very, very exciting.
Yeah. So what is your, if we're talking about your career in film, Albatross was your most recent project.
Albatross was our first project as a company. I had done quite a few projects prior to starting my own company with my sister, but Albatross was like our initial, I think, introduction into the industry as Sky Film Studios. And so that's kind of where I'd like to say my career officially started. And we shot that 2 years ago. And it's just wrapping up the festival circuit. It's on its, I mean, like, I think it's its 10th consecutive win. It was just so gratifying to see something we had put our heart, blood, sweat, and tears into flourish into something so incredible. And so that was our very first introduction to the industry as a film company. And then our latest project is called Work to Death, and it's our first feature as a production company. And we just wrapped that up a month ago. So we're in the very drilling stages of editing, but so far so good.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you mentioned the plot for Albatross, but there's so many different sides of film, and as a writer, as a director, can we talk about the directorial process and kind of what that was like, taking your even your own work and turning it into something on that professional level?
Absolutely. Albatross, it originally started, or I have the full length feature that was the first thing I'd written after I'd quit my job at the first production company I'd ever worked at. And I had took about a year hiatus to kind of figure out what I wanted my mark in the industry to be. And Albatross was the first project that I truly felt was just an honest I guess mirror of what I was going through, and my own fears for the future, and fears as a woman in with Mexican descent. And so Albatross definitely started as a very large project that was just kind of like a flushing of all of my ideas. And then I fell in love with the idea so much um, that I had written Albatross prior to creating Sky Film Studios. And as soon as we created Sky Film Studios, I knew that was going to be the project that I wanted to kick us off with. And so I had written a shorter version of it, about 20 pages. And I thought, okay, let's see if we can do this by ourselves. And so we'd taken that very big leap and invested everything we had made as a company into this first proof of concept that could or could not be a success. And so we filmed Albatross, and as a director, it was so amazing to see something that was solely mine. And we had amazing collaborators, but story wise, it was just so personal, and it was everything that I had hoped it would be. And then after filming that, being on set and seeing how amazing it was to work with an actor who was delivering the lines so perfectly that I had envisioned in my head for so long. It was the most incredible feeling. And then seeing the final product and seeing the positive feedback we got from it, I think just solidified that what we're doing is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. And that just gave us the confidence to go and do our first feature. And so far so good.
So far, so good indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even the film festival circuit is something that for a lot of filmmakers who are maybe earlier on in their career might not know how to dive into. Is that something that you were a part of as the director, reaching out or figuring out how to get into all the film festivals?
Yeah, absolutely. The film festival circuit is a beast in itself, and I don't think people realize how expensive it is. It's never calculated into the budget initially. But we do everything through Film Freeway, just the initial website. I've done all my projects there since, I mean, high school when I was doing student films kind of thing. And it's great because it's all just compacted into one platform. It's so easy to submit. It's just it costs a little penny. but but I think with Albatross, we didn't realize that we didn't have to stay domestic, that there was so much opportunity internationally too, especially in Mexico and in Europe. They had incredible festivals that we've gotten into that I would have never seen for ourselves. And so that was really amazing to see that people overseas are watching our film and responding, and we're winning awards. And we had gotten one in Rome for Best American Director. And that was just, it was something I never would have imagined. And it was really incredible to see how far cinema can reach. I mean, miles and miles away. And so that I think has been great. And that was all through Film Freeway. So definitely that is the platform that we gravitate towards.
Yeah, and I may put that in the description too. I'm familiar with Film Freeway, but for everyone who's maybe not sure about that next step for film festivals, Film Freeway is a great resource.
Mhm.
Was there a strategy behind which film festivals you opted into?
I think it was ones that I had submitted to before with past short films that I had done, and then word of mouth. I really reached out to a lot of my friends and other film directors to see what they were gravitating towards. And then through social media, there was a lot of festivals through social media that had reached out to us directly. And I think that was just a completely different experience that I hadn't really, I think, utilized properly. And just reaching out to them, and they give you discount codes too on social media. I think all you have to do is ask, and that was a really big thing that we were very surprised with, is just asking and them being more than willing, because at the end of the day I think cinema wants to support cinema, and they were more than happy. And being in the festivals and just seeing the feedback, it's really, really gratifying.
Very cool. You mentioned reaching out to other filmmakers, and I'm curious really the balance of this, because you work with your sister and you already have such a great partnership. How do you handle whether it's networking with other LA filmmakers or expanding your network for, you know, just in the film industry in general?
Yeah, I think going to film festivals physically has been something that we really, really have valued, because we're able to meet so many different filmmakers and people and see their work on the screen. And so if there's a local festival going on, even if we don't have a film in it, we'll really make the effort to go and just socialize, meet people, network, and all that great stuff. And then anybody who I've worked with on set previous to what I'm currently doing, I just make sure to keep in contact with them. Any director I've worked with, producers, I mean, anybody from the makeup artist to the AC, I just make sure to keep the contact strong, because one, you'll probably work with them again. The business is, it's big, but it's small. and and yeah, just nourishing those relationships, because they'll last you forever. And the people that I'm working with now and who are just coming up, I can see us working together for years and years to come.
Awesome. Yeah, community can be very important. It's sometimes industries where it's who you know to
Mhm.
open doors.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely had that experience, and seen both sides of it, losing out on an opportunity because I didn't have a personal relationship, and vice versa, having nourished a relationship and gotten jobs because of it. And so I can definitely attest to that.
Awesome. Let's go back to your directing. I'm curious about your style
Mhm.
and inspirations. If you draw from any particular directors or films that have inspired your style as a director.
Absolutely. I think as a director, the most important thing I've learned is to trust the other creatives around you, especially your actors. And so after I've nourished a character so much on paper and envisioned um, this persona for them, I communicate what I can to the actor, and then I follow it with, but she's now yours, and you can bring what you want to the table, and you can do what you want with her. And I've grown her as much as I can. Um, and I like birthed her and I nurtured her, but now I have to pass her off to the next part of her life. And so, in a lot of ways, my characters feel like my children that I have to let them go and let them spread their wings, and I pass them off to the actor, and then they do incredible things with them that I would have never have thought of. And I think um, being able to have that blind trust with your actors and with the other people on set is so important. And just giving other people the creative space that I know I've given myself is equally as important as, I mean, creating the character in the first place. And so I think I've learned that from a plethora of directors. I mean, Christopher Nolan, David Fincher, and then of course all my favorite female directors. They have always let me know that it's a very personal experience and you have to get personal with it in order to build something that's going to matter to other people. And I think Lena Dunham does a great job of keeping film very personal and very like low stress. And she says, you know, it's just a mirror of what we're doing, just do it, and then the story will kind of flourish on its own if you give it the room to. And so yeah, I think that's kind of what I've led with for a lot of my projects, and it hasn't disappointed yet.
That's amazing. Do you have any other advice for, say, a young woman who might be watching or listening who aspires to be a director? Maybe they've done other roles in the industry, but trying to break into directing. Anything you have to say?
Absolutely. I would say be on set and just observe as much as you can, because there's always something you can take from any experience you have, and then just make it a point to have new experiences and have a story to tell. I think in order to be creative, you have to live creatively, and you have to form your own voice, and you have to figure out what you want to say. And as soon as you have an idea of, okay, this is who I want to be in the industry, this is what I want to say, I think the doors really start to open because people will listen if they know you have something to say. And just be confident in your work, confident in your voice as a creative. And I think writing is a really, really great place to start for a director. Not a lot of people are just going to give you their script, unfortunately, when you're first starting out. And so, in order to direct, you often have to either like find a writing partner or just write something yourself, and then you have something to direct. And so I think finding the content or creating the content, either find a writing partner or just buckle down and write something that feels authentic to yourself. And if it feels honest to you, the audience can absolutely see right through that.
I love that.
Mhm.
I'm curious from the writing side, because you're so confident in everything that you do. Sometimes I talk to writers sometimes who it's like, you know, either an imposter syndrome thing or is my writing good enough to make into a film? Do you have anything to say about that? Is that something that you've experienced?
Absolutely. I think overthinking gets the best of writers many a times. Um, and I think initially it's just remembering that anything you write the first time is going to be terrible. And initially the words are, they're just going to be words. And I remember Jordan Peele, he said that the first draft is just putting sand in the sandbox. And then from there you start to build the sandcastle. And so just knowing that you're just giving yourself all the pieces initially, and it's not going to be good, but having the patience with yourself, having the patience with the story, and then giving it, the story itself, the space to grow, I think is really important, because you just have to listen to the story and listen to where it wants to go, and then kind of follow along. And so you're kind of like taking the back seat to where the story wants to go, and it's just about listening to what feels right. And it's all about, I think, instinct. And a lot of the time, if people try and get too caught up in, well, act one, act two, act three, it's great, but what's the why behind everything? What's the push, and what's the emotion, and really, why are these characters doing what they're doing, and how can you relate them to other people? And so at the end of the day, it's less about the logistics of a story and more about the emotion of the story and what it's making people feel. And I think if you just focus on that as a writer, and just know that initially the story is not going to be good, but if you keep at it and keep at it, it's going to turn into something you could have never imagined. I think that's really what gets me going when I read a first draft of mine and I think, oh gosh, I'm in the wrong business. Yeah.
I love that. That's incredible advice, because it's easy to get caught up in your own head, and even taking a step back and realizing some of the things that you said, you can look at it with fresh eyes, or
Yeah.
approach the second draft in a different way, maybe
Mhm.
than rewriting the same parts of it over and over again and getting caught up in the little things.
Yeah, it's daunting, but I also think that when you feel inspired, right, and when you feel blockage, just read anything, read scripts, read books, read the back of a carton. Like, any words will inspire more words. And so I think if you just surround yourself in the right creative environment, it should come very, very easily. And if it doesn't, read something until it does, kind of thing, or go watch a movie, and or do something inspiring that makes you feel alive. And then the words will come naturally, because they're not supposed to be forced. They're supposed to just flow. And if they're not flowing, then there's a breakage. But as long as they're flowing, right, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just, it's what feels good. And some people are going to like your work and some people aren't. And that's, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, just do it, and you're ahead of everybody who says they want to and don't. And it's better to have work to be critiqued than to have nothing and just critique other people's.
Yeah. There's a quote I'm trying to think of. I can't quite remember it, but it's about how, I'm going to not do it very good justice, but it's like the amount of times that you fail is better than if you never tried or never did it, essentially.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I very much agree with that. And every time you fail, you learn something new, and you're gonna get better. You can't fail and get worse. It's like impossible. You fail to get better and to grow, and it's all part of the process. And it's a beautiful process if you let it be. So don't be scared of the process. It's scary, but don't be scared, and just kind of do it. And the payback is worth it a million times over.
Love it. Love it. So we're getting near the end of time. I'm wondering if there's anything that you want to talk about as well, anything that we missed in terms of advice for filmmakers, or anything on your heart to share.
Yeah, I would say the most important thing I've learned as a filmmaker, as a writer, as a human, is to stay curious. I think as we grow into adulthood, we lose that sense of curiosity we always had as children. And we have to stay curious. We have to want to learn. We have to want to experience things. We have to want to grow our mind and our perspective. And you can do this through cinema, through travel, through reading, through just having new experiences as a whole. And I think if we keep curiosity at the forefront of everything we do, our projects will absolutely reflect that. And to stay very honest in the project that you decide to go forth with, and be passionate about them, because at the end of the day, an audience can see right through somebody who is just telling a story because they think that's the story people want to hear, instead of telling a story that really means a lot to them. And you can make a story about anything. And I always tell people, you don't have to go on an insane adventure to make a story. It can be as simple as um, as anything. I mean, I remember when the octopus teacher came out, I was like, how did this movie about an octopus change my life? And I would explain it to people before they would watch it on Netflix, and I would be like, you have to watch this movie about an octopus. People would be like, why would I watch a movie about an octopus? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And I was like, no, you have to watch it because the story just it's so much bigger than this one thing. And so stories can grow into these incredible things if you let them, and it's just about having that starting point and just about being curious about anything, and then you can write a story about whatever you're curious about, and then it'll grow and it'll grow, and eventually it'll become something that I think you'll be very proud of. So I would say my advice above all is to stay curious, and you can't go wrong.
That's great. That's great advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And one more time, if you just tell everyone the best way to stay connected with you in the work that you're doing. So,
Absolutely. We have,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
sorry, go ahead. Okay. We have our website, skyfilmstudios.com. It's SKYE. And then our Instagram, Sky Film Studios. And then my personal Instagram, where I do a lot of behind the scenes stuff about what we're doing and the personal adventures I go on as a director in order to stay curious. And that's just Savannah_Ray. And yeah, that pretty much covers all the platforms we put things through.
That's amazing. And the film you just wrapped, can we expect to see that in film festivals soon?
Yes, absolutely. Work to Death is going to come out in November of 2023, so a few more months, and we'll be posting some sneak peeks of the film, and it's actually an anthology, and so there's a lot going on with it, and there's going to be some animation in it. We're kind of just taking all the things we've ever wanted to do in the most insane way and putting it into this one creative entity, and then seeing how people respond. It's definitely the most ambitious thing we've ever done. But yeah.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. So everyone be sure to go follow Savannah, the work she's doing. Be sure to keep in touch with Sky Film Studios. We're excited to see your next film and all the beautiful work that you do.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. And everyone, be sure to be on the lookout for the next conversation.
Awesome. Bye.
All right, take care.